Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a really fascinating event. It's got a lot of people talking. This recent all-female spaceflight.
Mm-hmm.
And what immediately grabbed me is that detail. It's been over 60 years since anything quite like this happened.
Yeah, it really is significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you flag this news report, I mean, that historical context just jumps out, doesn't it?
It does.
And for our listeners, folks who want to get the core story, understand why it matters without wading through tons of jargon. Well, we've tried to sift through it all.
Yeah, bring out the essential insights. And we've got a solid base here with this news report. It gives us the basics, the who, what, when, where.
Right.
Covers the launch, introduces the pretty impressive crew, and shares some really human moments from the whole thing.
And you mentioned the names people will recognize. Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos' fiancée, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Katy Perry, Gayle King, and then others.
Mm-hmm.
Really accomplished women who are part of this.
Exactly. So our goal here really is to dig a bit deeper than just the headlines.
Unpack it.
Yeah, figure out why this flight is noteworthy. Explore the details and maybe connect them to, the bigger picture of space travel and this whole space tourism thing that's emerging.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so the event itself happened just this past Monday down in West Texas.
Right. And the vehicle, that was Blue Origin's new Shepard rocket.
No Shepard. Okay.
Yeah, that's their suborbital rocket.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the cornerstone of their space tourism efforts right now. Engineered for these shorter trips to the edge of space.
Giving passengers that quick taste of weightlessness, the view.
Exactly. That's the idea.
And it was relatively brief, wasn't it? The whole thing, about 11 minutes?
Roughly. Yeah, around 11 minutes, launch to landing. They lifted off, 9:31 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay, 13:31 GMT for anyone tracking.
Right. Climbed up high enough for those few minutes of zero G and then back down to Earth.
And the report mentioned it was a successful return for Blue Origin, which is, I guess, pretty important for them.
Oh, absolutely. A critical step as they, continue to develop and, frankly, try to prove the reliability of their space tourism program. Every successful flight counts.
Right. Okay, now let's talk about who is on board, because this is where that more than 60 years thing really hits home. So the 6 women making history here: Lauren Sanchez, Katy Perry, Gayle King, we know her work well.
Sure.
Aisha Bowe, who's a former NASA rocket scientist. I mean, wow.
That's quite a background. Yeah.
Amanda Nguyen, also a scientist. And Carrie-Anne Flynn, a film producer. What a group.
It really is. A very diverse, very accomplished crew. But yeah, the headline that everyone's picking up on: first all-female spaceflight in over 6 decades.
Over 6 decades.
And the reporting specifically brings up Valentina Tereshkova.
Right.
The Soviet cosmonaut.
The pioneer. First woman in space, solo flight, way back in 1963.
Exactly. And thinking about that huge gap, 60-plus years,
Mm.
it just underscores the significance, doesn't it? Makes you pause.
It really does. It shifts the perspective, I think. It stops being just, celebrities go to space and feels more like a moment, even if it was suborbital, not like Tereshkova's orbital mission.
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
The duration, the nature of the flight, very different from Tereshkova's multi-day orbital mission. But the symbolism of an entire crew of women after such a long, long pause, it's profound. It kind of makes you wonder, well, why did it take so long?
Good question.
The early space programs were so heavily influenced by military test pilot backgrounds, which maybe inadvertently created barriers for women early on.
That makes sense. The report also gave us some really vivid little moments. Apparently, Jeff Bezos was right there at the landing site.
Yep, saw the pictures, hugging Lauren Sanchez as she got out of the capsule.
You can only imagine the emotion there, right?
For sure. It brings that human element back into it. Sometimes it feels all tech and hardware, but there are real people, real risks, real connections.
Definitely. And Gayle King apparently shared this lovely moment. Katy Perry, after floating in zero G, started singing "What a Wonderful World."
Oh, wow. Yeah, I read that too.
That just sounds like such a genuine, moving reaction to the whole thing.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it? That profound emotional hit you get seeing the planet from, up there, even briefly. And Katy Perry's comment about feeling super connected to love, it captures that sense of awe, that interconnectedness people often talk about after space travel.
In this little detail, I thought this was sweet. Katy Perry took a daisy into space, a little nod to her daughter, Daisy.
Oh, yeah. That's lovely. It just grounds this like extraordinary event in something very personal, very everyday, family.
Totally. Little personal motivations mixed in with this grand adventure.
Exactly.
The report also mentioned some familiar faces on the ground watching. Oprah Winfrey was there, apparently quite emotional.
Yeah, I saw that mentioned. Along with Kris Jenner and Khloe Kardashian.
Right. So it definitely had that high-profile, almost celebrity event feel to it as well.
It does. And that highlights, I think, how these things operate at the intersection of, like, tech advancement and pop culture.
True.
These flights capture the public imagination, and having well-known people involved just amplifies the attention, which, potentially broadens awareness, even if some critics might see it more as entertainment than serious science.
Which, okay, that leads us nicely into the business side of it all. Space tourism, Blue Origin's vision, they say, is to radically reduce the cost of access to space.
That's the long-term goal.
And the reusability of the new Shepard rockets, that's key to that strategy, right?
Absolutely essential, yeah. Reusability is the game changer, potentially. Instead of building these incredibly complex, expensive rockets and just ditching them after one use,
right,
being able to fly them again and again, that's how you eventually bring down the per-seat cost, theoretically at least.
Okay, so the money side. This is fascinating. The report gives us a few data points just to get in line. Basically, the order process, you need a $150,000 refundable deposit.
Wow. Yeah, refundable, but still. $150,000 just to, raise your hand.
That tells you something about the current market, doesn't it? Pretty exclusive.
Definitely filters out, well, pretty much everyone at this stage.
And then we heard back in 2021, remember that auction? One seat went for $28 million.
$28 million. Yeah, that was huge news. Now, that specific auction was unique. Proceeds went to charity. But
it set a kind of benchmark, didn't it, for the perceived value, the exclusivity of these very first flights.
Absolutely. William Shatner flew as a guest later that year, too, remember? Which also shows the promotional value they see in these things.
Oh, yeah, Captain Kirk himself. And going back even further, there was a Reuters report, 2018, I think, suggesting Blue Origin was aiming for maybe $200,000 plus per passenger.
Right. So it seems like the pricing, or at least the public talk about pricing, has kind of evolved as they've gotten closer to regular operations and understand the market a bit more.
It's a tricky balance, I imagine. Operational costs, what the market will bear, the wow factor.
Exactly. It's a whole new market they're essentially trying to create and define.
The article also brought in some analysis from Professor Loizos Heraklius at Warwick Business School. He estimates each New Shepard launch costs somewhere between, $1 to $3 million?
Yeah, in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a lot, and it is, but then you divide it by the number of seats. 6 seats per flight.
Right. So even at $1 million a launch, that's still, a hefty cost per person that they need to cover just to break even, let alone make profit.
Precisely. And Professor Heraklius does the math, suggesting that for it to be financially viable long-term, they probably need to charge passengers somewhere around $500,000 each.
$500,000 for an 11-minute trip.
Yeah. It really highlights the huge economic hurdles still facing the space tourism industry. The tech is amazing, sure, but the cost of getting to space is still the major barrier for, wider access.
And Professor Heraklius had this quote that kind of brings it back to earth, so to speak. He said, "It'll take a long, long time before space tourism can be a financially sustainable business available to the public at large."
And that's such a crucial dose of realism, isn't it? Yeah. Amidst all the excitement and the headlines, these flights absolutely generate buzz. They're technological achievements. But that vision of, anyone being able to afford a quick trip to space, it's likely still a very distant reality.
Significant challenges remain. Technological, logistical.
And crucially economic.
Yeah. So, okay, pulling it all together. This all-female flight, undeniably a significant moment, especially with that huge gap since Tereshkova. It feels like a powerful reminder of maybe ongoing progress, even if it's not always linear, just broadening who gets to experience space.
It really does touch on several important themes, doesn't it? You've got the symbolic power of representation in space. You've got the continued evolution of space tourism as a business. And then the hard economic facts that are going to shape how accessible it actually becomes, beyond a very select few.
It really makes you think, though, what are the wider implications of making space more accessible, even bit by bit, even if the price is sky high right now?
Yeah, what future milestones could we see? Not just who goes, but maybe what they do up there.
Exactly. Definitely something to ponder long after we wrap up today. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.